Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new year and a new season on the Stancil Wealth Podcast. If you're new here, this is where we give you practical advice on your finances, whether you're young, you're old, you're rich, or not yet, whether you're in the advanced financial planning stages of your life or brand new to this thing called financial planning and investments. This is where we empower you to make informed decisions and give you information and encouragement on your finances. So I'm Cody Stancil, certified financial planner and founder of Stancil Wealth Planning. Before I get into today's topic, the 2026 Financial Reset, a money playbook, I wanted to run through some updates and changes on this year's podcast. So if you've been listening for a while, you've probably noticed it's been a few months since our last podcast recording. I have two big announcements to make. First off, you may have noticed we have a new name, Stancil Wealth Planning. Our previous firm name was apparently copyrighted and trademarked in our industry, so they reached out to us and we had to change our name. Nothing else really changes, not the service, not the topics that we'll go over in these podcasts. But what has changed is we have a new website. So it's stancilwealth.com. And our email changed too. So my email address, Cody@stancilwealth.com. Lauren, my executive assistant, is Lauren@stancilwealth.com. And our general inquiry inbox is info@stancilwealth.com. So we had to change our name, and I cannot mention the name that we changed it from for legal reasons. So once again, everything else is staying the same service, same team, same topics that we'll go over on these podcasts. It'll be 10 to 15 minutes on each of these podcasts, short, sweet, get you on the day and get you having a good weekend. Our 2026 goal is to have a weekly podcast. So for a month, and hopefully new episodes dropping every Friday for you to gear up for your weekend. So with that, the second big announcement, I will be the solo host of this podcast. From now on, we adjusted how we operate and distribute the podcast. So I will be the solo host. But in saying that, I actually just got done with two podcasts. I will have guests on the podcast from time to time. So I'm planning on probably every other podcast having a guest join me. So twice a month or so. Don't hold me to it, but that's kind of the tentative plan. These guests can span the universe on the finance topics related to mortgage lenders, what we're seeing with interest rates. I'll talk to a real estate agent or two, where are they seeing the housing market and how competitive, is it buyer's market, seller's market, kind of walking through that. I may have an economist come on, talk about the investment market, what's the outlook on your 401k and your investments. May have an estate planning attorney come on to talk about how important it is to update your estate plan. So just running through all the different topics, there's not a shortage of topics in the financial planning world. So I'm really excited about that. So with having a new name, we've had to go back and remove our previous name from the podcast for legal reasons. So if you go back, you'll have to search Stancil Wealth Podcast, Stancil Wealth Planning Podcast, if you want to see any of those previous podcasts that we've done. And hint, that's why it's been a few months since we shot our last podcast, is we've had to hire an editor and go back through all those podcasts. Enough of that. Obviously, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. But today, this may be a little bit longer of a podcast because I also want to give you the topics that we'll discuss today. So for today, I wanted to walk through, I'm titling it, Your 2026 Financial Reset, a money playbook for the new year, right? It's a fresh start. It's January as of this recording right now, 2026. So I know New Year's resolutions and your diet's probably fading at this point, and all the goals that you've set, whether you wanted to set them or not, they may be holding up strong or they may not be. So think of this kind of as a New Year's resolution to your money and your finances. What can you do? What kind of checklist can you make to improve your finances for this year? Kind of like I said, New Year's resolution. So, and as far, I'll give you some 2026 tax law updates, investment info updates, because we're in a new, calendar year as well. So first thing, we've all made goals before. right? The old saying that don't make a goal on an outcome, make it on an action, right? So you can say, my goal is to be debt-free next year, but that's an outcome, right? That's not an action. And that's fine. My goal is to be debt-free, but you have to give it some action. Your goal needs to be an action. So something that you can control. So your goal really should be, my goal is to pay $1,000 extra every month to my credit card or to my vehicle, right? Like that's an action that you can control. And as a result, obviously you'll get the end result as well. But you'll be debt-free, by doing that. So give your goal an action. So that leads me into my first playbook item for 2026. Let's make this the year that you're consumer debt-free. What's consumer debt? Basically every debt besides the mortgage. So credit cards, personal loans, student loans, car loans, any kind of loan or debt that isn't a mortgage loan. Most importantly, I would love for you to set those goals to get you on path to being debt-free. So I want you to set them this year. Whether you end up being debt-free by December 31 this year, great. But if not, you at least made a plan. You have a strategy for it going forward. Even if you'll be debt-free in 2027 or 2028, you sat down and made a plan for it. So how you go about this is sit down, lay out all of your debts, right? Kind of make a spreadsheet or write them down, whatever it may be. Prioritize them smallest to largest, or prioritize them highest interest rate to lowest interest rate. Actually go through this, which one of these to do and which one makes sense for you in a previous podcast. That episode is titled Breaking Free Smart Debt Elimination Strategies. And I believe we shot that in September of 2025. So you can go back through that and see the details on how to go about and how to prioritize those. So lay out your debts in order, whatever amount, which one you pick. The avalanche method or the snowball method. There's differences there. Once again, I go into the podcast. So lay out all your debts and add them all up and divide them by 12. And roughly speaking, you can pay this much extra toward that loan and be debt-free this time next year. So for example, if you added all of them up and it's $36,000, okay, credit cards, car loans, student loans, whatever it may be, they all add up to $36,000. Divide by 12, and if you pay $3,000 a month toward these loans, you'll be debt-free by this time next year, right? Nothing radical, nothing groundbreaking advice there, Cody, but it gives you an action plan. So let's say you're already paying $1,200 a month toward these loans, just the minimums or the regular payments to your car payment or whatever. So you only need to pay an extra $1,800 each month to pay these off by this time next year. Right, you're already paying $1,200. You need to pay an extra $1,800 so that you're paying $3,000 toward your $36,000 debt total. That's rough math, so it may take you a month or two more because of the interest that's going to cost you. But I'm just trying to help you build a roadmap here. Now, if you can't afford that $1,800 extra a month, you say, "Okay, Cody, that sounds great, but where am I going to find $1,800 just lying around every single month?" Okay, fine. Then don't divide by 12. Run through that same exercise, but divide by 18. Right? So our previous example, that would be $2,000 a month. And you're already paying $1,200 a month. So now you need to pay an extra $800 a month to be debt-free 18 months from now, right? Summer of 2027. So if you can swing this $800, then you'll be debt-free. Once again, you'll have a goal, you'll have a plan, stick with it, you'll be debt-free in 18 months. If the extra $800 a month is still you can't swing that, still too much, then just keep going down the list. Keep dividing that number by 12 or 18 or 24 or 30 until you find that monthly number that you're like, I can do $400 a month, I can do $600, I can do $200, whatever it may be. Make this year the year that you have a resolution for your debt and you have a plan. Whether you actually have it paid off this year or not, develop that plan. The next playbook item is your savings account. So cash. Make this year the year you have enough in your savings account. How much is enough? Our rule of thumb is 3 to 12 months of spending. It used to be 3 to 6 months, but with inflation and just people's spending numbers, we kind of bumped that up. So 3 to 12 months of spending is our rule of thumb. So for example, You add up everything that you spend in a month. Let's say it's $10,000. We're going to want you to have anywhere between $30,000 and $120,000 of cash in your savings account, checking account, CD, emergency fund, whatever it may be, liquid that you can access at any time before moving on to a next goal. So depending on where you're at in life, if you're married and both you and your spouse work and make good income and you're younger than 50 years old, I'm okay with you having closer to 3 months of savings because your risk is lower, right? 2 incomes, your earning years are probably still ahead of you because you're younger than 50. Your risk is just lower, so I'm okay with you having a little bit less in a savings account. But if you only have one income, whether you're single or married, but only you work or your spouse works, and or you're 55 and older and a few years from retirement, then I'm going to want you to have closer to 12 months of expenses because your risk is just higher. One income, God forbid you're laid off, now the family has no income, your risk is higher. You're only a few years from retirement, we have a bad market, your risk is higher. So that's how we kind of prioritize and think about how much to have in a savings account. So this exercise is very similar to my last section on the debt. So establish what exact amount you want to have in your savings account, divide that number by 12, and make it a goal to save this amount per month. So let's say you have 10 grand in your savings account and you know that's not enough and you want to get to 60 grand of savings. Well, that's a 50 grand difference, right? And divide by 12, you'll need to save a little over 4 grand a month to get there, right? So that's a lot of money. So once again, keep moving that down the list, 12 months, 18, 24, divide it by whatever you can. If you need to pause what you're doing to the 401k, if you need to pause you saving for the kids' college, whatever it may be, focus on this savings as we're seeing with the workforce market and everything. You can't afford to lose your job and lose your income going forward. I would encourage you, don't procrastinate this one too much. Don't extend that number out to 24 or 30 just because we want you to have enough cash ASAP because you don't choose when you get laid off or you don't choose your next emergency, right? So try to have that saved up as soon as possible. After debt, after cash flow, next, another roadmap item, check your retirement contributions. 2026 has new limits on how much you can contribute toward Roth IRAs, 401ks, even HSAs. So check your pay stub, your 1231 pay stub from your job, and see if you're really saving what you think you are. Real life example, talked to a client the other day. She told me that she was maxing out her 401k. Okay, so we looked at her December 31 pay stub to see how much she contributed. And sure enough, she contributed $16,000 and change last year toward her 401k, which is great. But the IRS max is $23,500. So she thought she was maxing it out, but she wasn't maxing it out at all, right? That definitely affects your planning in the future and your taxes and all that. So in general, looking at your December 31 pay stub will tell you a lot about your financial situation. It tells you how much you're contributing to your 401k. It tells you how much you're contributing to the Roth 401k portion or the pre-tax 401k portion. It tells you how much your employer contributed toward your 401k. How many of you know dollar for dollar how much that was last year? Your pay stub will tell you how much went into your HSA from you and from your employer, right? So the annual max for your HSA is a combined number, what you and your employer puts in total. So check on that number. Your pay stub tells you how much tax withholding you had. So fast forward 3 months from now, if you get a tax refund, you can decrease how much you're withholding from your pay stub and your paycheck, or vice versa. If you end up owing a lot at tax season coming up, you need to increase how much you're withholding, which your pay stub will tell you how much you withheld. So once again, December 31 pay stub will tell you a lot. That's a good one to check as a reset and a checklist item for your 2026 finances. Let me pause there. By the way, if you do just these 3 things, become debt-free, have an ample savings account, and you're contributing enough toward retirement, you're already ahead of 75% of people out there, right? Whether you're 20 or you're 80, that if you can do those 3 things and get those in order in your command, you're doing a hell of a job. Pardon my French. That's fantastic. So last 2 items I'll touch on. for your roadmap for 2026 is they're the easiest to do, but also the hardest to do somehow. So first one, I encourage you to get your estate plan done. The second one, readdress your life insurance situation. So check in on it. Next week, we'll actually post our podcast with an estate planning attorney, Janelle Cremay. She joined the podcast. We went over topics of estate planning and her process and some things to look out for. So I encourage you. I told a story to a client the other day. I have a client, they're in their early 40s, healthy. They have minor children. Life is normal. She has a brain bleed and, she's in ICU and, the Lord has a plan for her, but it may not be in this world anymore, right? So things change on a dime. You definitely want to get your estate plan in order because you don't control where your life goes from here. So I'm really excited for that podcast. Be on the lookout for that one, having your estate plan done. Once again, the second one, life insurance. When was the last time you looked at how much coverage you have and whether that's enough, right? So that's something we can sit down and go over. I had a separate podcast on this topic titled Life Insurance, Calculating What You Need. It's also from September of 2025. So you can go back and check out that one in a little bit more depth on how much you need. But maybe you bought your policies a decade ago and you're not sure when they lapse or whether that amount is still good enough. You probably have a pay raise since then. Your lifestyle is definitely higher, especially with inflation. So you may need more coverage, or your savings and all your other assets, you've reached a point where you're self-insured. And I would love for you to just cancel your policies and it makes sense for everyone and not keep paying that premium. That may make sense too. So check in on those two items right there. And no, just life insurance through your work is usually not enough coverage, usually. So last thing, other topics that you should check in on at least once a year that I won't go into depth here, but it may ping something in your brain for you to check in on. One thing is check your homeowner and car insurance. Those prices have skyrocketed the last couple of years. So have you shopped around in a while and can you find a better deal? Second one, check your property tax appraisal. Are they taxing you on a value that you think is too high and therefore you should contest? Third one are your 401k investment allocation. If you don't work with me, now is your reminder to check with your 401k investment. Log in, see if that investment allocation is really still what you need. Make sure it's still the best for you. FYI, everyone's 401k plan usually adds or removes a couple of mutual funds once a quarter or once a year. So you may have some new investment options that you need to check in on. Obviously, that's a service that we provide to our clients to look over their 401k for them. But if you obviously don't work with us, here's your reminder to do so, to check in on the 401k. Next one, your spending budget. Yikes. No one likes this one, right? But did you have a slow increase in your spending over 2025, especially with inflation? You think you're spending 10 grand a month, but once you really crunch the numbers, you guys are really spending 12 grand a month. Obviously, that affects a lot of planning and where your cash flow is going. So here's your annual reminder to check in on your budget. What I recommend is go back through the last 2 or 3 months of just bank statements and see how much you're spending. That's the best way to and divide it by 2 or 3, right? And that tells you your monthly spending. And then last one, check your bank savings interest rate. The Fed lowered rates in 2025, so your savings account may not pay you as much as you think anymore. It definitely doesn't pay you as much as it did 2 years ago. So we have conservative investment alternatives to just a bank savings account for your emergency fund. We call it an extended emergency fund. So something to keep in mind if you have just, let's say you want to have 50 grand in a savings account and you have 70 or 80 grand in a savings account, but you don't really want to invest it aggressively. Reach out to me. We have some very conservative investment options that are just better than your paying higher than your bank savings rate. So there are plenty of other topics, but I hope this helps. As always, let us know any questions. Cody@stancilwealth.com. Our phone number is 469-606-2040 or go to stancilwealth.com. God bless. Have a great weekend. Thank you for listening to the Stancil Wealth Podcast. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only It is general in nature and may not apply to your specific situation. Please consult with a professional before acting on any information shared in this podcast pertaining to financial, investment, legal, or tax advice. The views expressed by Cody and his guests do not necessarily represent those of Charles Schwab, Victory Financial Group, or any other organization.